How many of you hate interruptions? Anybody hate interruptions? What? I mean, especially if you're trying to do something really important, right? And when you're trying to get it done, then somebody comes along and stop you from a mission that you're already on when you know you didn't have but so much time to get it done. And seems like, but what if their need is just as great as the need you were trying to fill? That's even more annoying, isn't it? Because now you got to figure out how you're going to help them and how you're going to do what you're supposed to do. Anybody ever been stuck like that? Yeah, and you get frustrated with it, don't you? Yeah, well, I'm glad Jesus doesn't do that. And that's where we find him in our lesson text today. Open up your Bibles, if you would, to the book of Matthew and the 9th chapter. And if you don't have a Bible, but you got your electronic device, I would encourage you to pull down the app called YouVersion. It's an excellent app. It has all different translations and devotionals and all kind of Bible studies for you to work with to help you as you're growing in what God is calling you to be. What did I say, chapter 9? And we're going to look at verses 20 through 21. And I'm going to come from the NIV. When you have it, say amen. All right, need a little more time, say hold up. Okay, we're going to give you a couple more seconds there. All right, here we find these words. Just then, a woman who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years came up behind him and touched the edge of his cloak. She said to herself, if I only touch his cloak, I will be healed. Jesus turned and said, daughter, take heart, he said, you have been healed. And the woman was healed at that moment. I want to talk about she has issues. Yeah, she has issues. Any of y'all in here got issues? Huh? Yeah, come on, raise your hand if you got issues. Yeah, he got issues too. Let's say he got... But sisters got issues here now. Now, to understand this text, remember I told you Jesus was being interrupted. Last week we talked about Jairus, and we're talking about crazy faith here now. And Jairus came to Jesus last week when Jesus was in the middle Bible study. He was teaching the Pharisees and the disciples of John about fasting and about the law and all of those kinds of things. And really, they weren't really trying to learn as much as they were trying to trap Jesus in something that wasn't true so that they could accuse him of not being who he said he was. And so while Jesus was in the middle of Bible study, Jairus ran into this publican's house. Well, a publican would have been considered a tax collector, and a tax collector would have been considered a sinner. And they wouldn't have been houses that a synagogue leader, who Jairus was, would have gone into. But you know, when you've run out of options, you sometimes forget about folks you don't like or going places you wouldn't rather go. So here's Jairus now. He burst up into this publican's house in the middle of Jesus' Bible study, and he interrupts him and says, my daughter has just died. Y'all remember that last week? And so in that, Jairus has interrupted Jesus in Bible study. And so now Jesus, the text said last week that he got up and he went to Jairus' house. Now, between last week and this week, Jesus is now on his way to Jairus' house. He's leaving Bible study, left them in the middle of the book of Deuteronomy, and now he's heading over here, going to Jairus' house. And it says here, just then, this means just as Jesus is leaving one place, it says this woman who has been subject to bleeding for 12 years came up behind him and touched the edge of his cloak. Now, to understand this woman here, remember I said she's got issues. Now, the first thing we see is that Jesus is leaving one place, going to another, and he had a bunch of folks following because he said that Jairus' daughter had just died, and Jesus said, come on. So folks are going along to see what's going on. You know, like to see what's happening? You know how you got some folks that they just going just to see what's going to happen, right? I'm going to see what he's going to do. I'm going to be there. You know, I don't believe the girl dead. We're going to go over there and see. You remember? Yes. So here he is now on his way to Jairus' house. And this woman who has what we call the issue of blood. Now, we have to understand how critical this was. Now, can I just talk plain? Even today, if a woman has a continuous bleeding, that's an issue, isn't it? I mean, that's not healthy, and it can be very painful. And a lot of times you find out you have some kind of cysts or fibers or what they call fiber. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I know it's uncomfortable and it's a constant bleeding. And so in the days of Jesus and all that period during that time, any woman who, matter of fact, even when she had her regular cycle, she was considered unclean. And for that time, no one, anything she touched was unclean. Anybody that touched her was unclean. And so, but you know, they could adjust to that period of time, right? But now here's a woman who's been dealing with this for 12 years. Now watch how the kind of issues she has. First, she can't even live in her own house. Domestically, anything that she touches in the house, if she touches a table, she touches a cup, she sits on anything, is unclean. So can you see every day you have to get new furniture? Some of y'all would like that, wouldn't you? New furniture every day, new furniture. Yeah, and so for this reason, she couldn't even live in the home. Now, if she were married, she couldn't even have intercourse with her husband. So she's separated from him. And so now you got this strain on the family dynamics. Are y'all walking with me here? And now you got children. Even if she wanted to have children, she couldn't have children. So she's maternally unclean and she couldn't even touch the children. And then how about this one? If she went out in the public, how would you like when you're having that cycle going on? Unclean, and you got to cover yourself. And everywhere you go, you got to holler out, unclean. So socially, she couldn't even go out in public and hang out with folks. And then last but not least, she sure enough couldn't come up in here. Did you know she couldn't go to the temple? She couldn't even worship. So now she's spiritually unclean. You talking about being separated. Are y'all walking with me here? Talking about being separated from society. Our sickness, can I give you some life advice? Our sickness can separate us from society. And even when you just have your own personal sickness. Do you notice how sometimes you go into a shell? You don't want to be bothered with anybody. You don't want to talk to anybody. If you suffer with any kind of chronic illness, if you got arthritis or if you have migraines, or there can be certain kinds of illnesses that if you got cancer, you just don't want to be around people. Or if you're suffering depression like we talked on last week, there's so many things that can send you spiraling down. Are y'all walking with me here? And so this woman, she's got issues. Can y'all feel her? Can you see them out there on the street corners? People who we see in society on the margins that's been ostracized, that we don't want to go near. Can you imagine? They don't get much eye contact. Have you noticed when you see homeless folks, you just sort of look away from them? You don't even want to look at them. So nobody has looked at you in your eye. How about this? Nobody has touched you. Just the touch of a human person. You know, you can stay on social media all you want, but there's nothing like the human touch. There's nothing like somebody just touching you or looking you in your eye and acknowledging you that you're a person. Look how much a person she's not. They don't even give her a name. Look at it and say, this woman. She's just a woman. Now, we don't know her name, but we know her situation. We see the circumstances that she finds herself in. She's in a difficult spot here. As I said, even today's time, it would be rough. But it was even more difficult then because there were no hospitals. But this woman hadn't been negligent. No, in fact, you write this one down. You can go to it, and I'll be walking back and forth between these two texts. But it's Mark, the 5th chapter, verses 24 through 34, I believe that it is. But Mark helps fill in the gap that Matthew doesn't have. And I think it's verse 25 or 26. It says now that she had spent all the money that she had. So she wasn't negligent. It wasn't like she didn't try to get help. She's gone from place to place, from doctor to doctor. And she probably even went to the Talmud, which is a Hebrew book, and looked for some medical remedies. And from my understanding, there are like 11 different remedies in there. Some of them were medically and And some of them were superstitions like carrying an ostrich egg in a linen bag. Now, see, we laugh at that, right? But if you heard that that was going to work for you, you'd be looking for an ostrich, wouldn't you? Come on now. Huh? You'd be seeking. It's something. Come on now. Come on. If you had a chronic illness and someone told you that all you got to do now is go get you an ostrich egg and put it in a linen bag and carry it around and you're going to be healed, all y'all be here with them ostrich eggs right now. In fact, you wouldn't let nobody, don't you get near my egg. You wouldn't let nobody near that thing, right? That's how serious, right, it would be. And so here she is now. She's looking for all sorts of remedies to try to get rid of her disease. And just like all of us, when something's wrong, you go to doctor. I was watching this show the other night. Some of you might have seen it. It's on Netflix. It's some good stuff out there now. It's some good stuff. It's called My Brain's on Fire. Have you seen that? Watch it. It's a really good, clean show to watch. But the young lady started having seizures and things of that nature. And they thought, one, she'd been drinking too much, or they thought she was on drugs, and she was doing all kind of crazy stuff at work, and her parents took her in, and they were trying to get her help, and they were saying that she was schizophrenic. They said she was bipolar. They were giving her all kind of diagnoses, and there was nothing that they could find that were wrong with her, and they were getting ready to put the girl away because they thought she was crazy. But this one doctor said, no, there's got to be something that can be done. And so she went to one of her old professors, and he came in and he examined her and found out that she had this unusual spot on her brain, and her head felt like it was on fire, and he was able to find a cure. So don't tell me you won't go get an ostrich egg. You go from place to place to place. And so now check this out now. So let's look at the thoughts of this woman now. We saw the troubles of this woman, but look what it says. It says in verse 21, I believe it says, she says, if I only touch his cloak, I will be healed. You see that? Now. It says that she could only touch it. This is where you start getting some crazy faith here now. She's tried everything. She's at the end of her rope. She's done all that she's known how to do. And she's probably started hearing rumors about this guy named Jesus. This one who has turned water into wine. She said, I don't need no wine. She's probably heard about him taking 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. She said, I don't need anything to eat. But then she probably started hearing about how he caused the blind to see and the lame to walk. And this one probably really blew her mind. And the lepers had been cleansed. So when she started hearing about this guy, she says, you know what? I need to find out where he is. And she was probably stalking Jesus that day. I can imagine now, if you knew who had the remedy for your illness, you're going to follow them. You're going to she probably got him on Facebook. Somebody said he's over to the publican's house. Come on now. Y'all know you can keep up with everything that's going on Facebook. And so there she is. She sees it on Facebook. And so she heads over to the publican's house. But by the time she gets there, there's a new update. He's on his way to Jairus' house. Are y'all walking with me here? And so as she's tracking Jesus now, she's got him in her GPS and she's following and she sees Jesus coming. And so this says now, go back up there now. It says she came up behind him. Y'all see that in verse 20? She snuck up behind him. Here's a woman now that shouldn't have been going out with anybody, shouldn't have even be in the crowd. But you know when it gets bad enough, you don't worry about certain things. You don't care who sees you. You don't care how difficult things may be. No, you're going to do what you got to do. You worry about the consequences and repercussions later. Yeah. Okay, y'all walking with me this morning. So here she is now. She sneaks up behind him. And if you go back over into Mark, she makes her way through the crowd. And as she makes her way through the crowd, she touches the hem of Jesus' garment. And for you to understand that word in the Greek, that word edge is the tassels that hung on the bottom of any Jewish man's outside garment. And those tassels were there for several reasons. One of the reasons was to remind the Jew that he was a Jew. And that was so important because sometimes they'd been so downtrodden. Sometimes you just need to remember whose you are. Because if you remember that you are a Jew, then you remember that you're a child of the Most High God. Sometimes situations may not look like you belong to God. So sometimes you need something just to remind you whose you are. Are y'all walking with me here? So they would walk around with those tassels on the bottom so it would remind them whose they are. And another reason was for them to remember that they're to keep the law of God. So if they got ready to do something wrong, they look down and see them tassels. Yeah, I shouldn't do that because one, I'm a child of God, and then two, God done gave me a law. Sometimes we just need a reminder, you know. Sometimes, brothers, you need a reminder you married, you know. Sometimes there's all kind of reminders that you get. I'm not even allowed to take this thing off. But walk with me now, walk with me. But no, it was a reminder. And the other thing that it helped them for people to know is that was a sense of purity for them, that they were pure and that they were clean and that they could do what they were supposed to do as a Jewish man. And so here's Jesus walking around and he's got this tassel on and she's touching the very place of purity that her hands shouldn't even be on. Are y'all walking with me here? She says, if I could just touch, if I could just get down here. And she made her way through the crowd. I don't know how the sister did it. Evidently, they didn't recognize it because I guarantee you folks would have scattered. In fact, they would say, girl, you better get out of here. What you doing? Are y'all walking with? So I don't know how she did it. I guess folks were so excited about hearing about a dead man, a young girl being raised from the dead. They didn't care who was in there. And all of these people were pushing and going on. And when Jesus says, who touched me? They said, you crazy. You see all these folks around you. How you going to ask us who touched me? And this is what blows my mind about her touching him now. It says now that she touched the hem of his garment and that virtue went out of him. Power went out of him. Somebody's got to walk with me here now. Now, I wonder now, check this out. All the other people that were bumping up against Jesus and all the other folks that were in his circle, nothing was going out of him. So sometimes folks are hanging out with Jesus, but they don't really have any faith in. Come on now, come on. So here he is now. He turns around. He says, who touched me? See, Jesus knows now that something has gone out of him. And the lady is all frightened. And she turns and then she catches his eye. Oh, watch this now. No one's looked in her eye in probably about 12 years. No one even knows who she is. She's got an eye-to-eye contact with the God of the universe. And he looks right at her. Now, see, she's got crazy faith. She just had a hunch that she could go and touch this man and she would be healed. Can I give you some life advice here? Sometimes you don't have to do much with your faith, but you need to do something. You got to do something with it. You know, faith without any actions is no faith at all. You see, sometimes we say, well, I got faith, but what you doing? I ain't doing nothing. I'm just sitting here waiting for the Lord to bless me. I'm just waiting. What you waiting on? God's going to bless me. He's going to bring my blessing. He's not going to come knock on the door. You got to take the steps. She took a step. She was bold enough. Now, her theology was whack because she was into a little superstition. Remember, I told you she went to that Talmud and she probably passed the medical stuff. And when all the medical stuff didn't go, she went over to the superstitious stuff. She probably had her ostrich egg with her on that day. When are y'all walking with me? So she's saying, you know what? But I got to try something. Sometimes you're just at the end of your rope. Sometimes you just say, you know what? I got to do something new. I just got to get in there. And Jesus says, I felt virtue. I felt something leave me. I felt power just being sucked. And look now, she didn't touch him. Even what Jesus had on. He could feel the tug of her on his clothes and knew that there was somebody that said, Lord, I need you. right now. If y'all walk with me here, walk with me. And so now you see the thought of the woman, and she came up behind him, and we know that with your faith, you got to do something. I don't care how little it is, but you got to do something with it if you really believe that God is who he says he is. In fact, Hebrews 11:6, write this one down. Hebrews 11:6 says that you must believe. It's going to come to me. It's going to come to me. Faith. Come on, Holy Spirit. Yes. It's impossible. Yeah, without faith. There you go. Thank you, Holy Spirit. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. And that you must believe he exists, and he's a rewarder of those who believe. So see, the first thing you got to do is believe that God is God. You got to believe he exists. And when you believe he exists, then you got to believe he's able to do what he says he can do. Now, that doesn't mean that he will do it, but you got to believe that he's able to do it. And here's the thing. You don't want God to do what you want. You want God to do what's right. See, sometimes we're praying for God to do what we want, but you know what? I want God to do what's right. But now sometimes what's right ain't what we want. Oh, I forgot we got company. They told me to behave. Isn't right. Yeah, it's not ain't. Y'all know. Edit that out, please. Are y'all walking with me here? Now walk with me. Walk with me. Look at this last part. It said, Jesus turned and saw her. Take heart, daughter, he said. Your faith has healed you. And the woman was healed at that moment. Now watch this. Watch the transformation of the woman. Watch the transformation of her. Jesus turned and looked at her. That was the first move that made her know that she was somebody. When you look at people and you look them in the eye, it says, I recognize you, that you are valuable. You know, sometimes we just walk past people. I don't care who they are. I don't care what their status is. I don't care where they live. You just look me in the eye, just like you're a person, I'm a person. Isn't it just good when someone just looks you in the eye? And then the next thing he says, take heart. In other words, he's encouraging her. Why? Because she knows she's been exposed right now. She's waiting now for Jesus to come down on her. She knows she's broken all the Jewish laws. She knows that she's supposed to be out of there. But I can tell you what the other folks were doing when they recognized who that girl was. They're like, did she touch you? She touched you. Didn't touch me. You know that's what started happening. The minute they recognized who she was, they're like, what you doing in here? You know you're not supposed to be in here. You know how we start going. You know what the law says. The law says lock them up. Y'all will catch that later. Sometimes we get so legalistic that we miss the point. Are y'all walking with me here? So when Jesus says take courage, he said, don't be afraid. I know you thought you messed up, but don't be afraid. He says, I ask you that for a reason. He says, why? Because you don't have to sneak up on Jesus. And Jesus said, you don't have to sneak up to have a relationship with me. You don't have to come up behind me. You can look me in the eye. You can come to the face of God. He's saying that, and notice now, he says, daughter. Now I want you to underline that. I'm going to show you how powerful this is. This is the only place in Scripture that Jesus calls any woman daughter. He doesn't even call his mama. He calls her woman. But you still didn't catch it. Notice now, if he calls her daughter, what has he said? You're my child. See, the relationship has changed. She's no longer just this woman. He may not have given her a name, but he's given her a new status. He's changed her from just being just a woman until a right relationship. And because he is God, he's speaking on behalf of God. And so if she's Jesus' daughter, that means she's God the Father's daughter. Are y'all listening to me now? And when you're a child of the Most High God, then you got access to everything that God has. Whatever you stand in need of, if you're a child of God, you need some comfort, you got access. You need some peace of mind, you got access. You need some healing, you got access. You need some relationship fix, you got access. All you got to do is push your way. See, some of us, you got to push your way through some, get out of the way. I just need to I just need to get into the presence of Jesus. And there she is now. Notice now. He says, take cheer. Take heart, daughter. That means be encouraged. You're my child now. Now look what he says. He says, you're touching my garment. Heal me. No. He says, you're buying those prayer cloths. Heal me. No. He says, pouring some oil on you healed you. No. No. Look what the text says now. Look what has healed her. It isn't any of that stuff that we chase after. He says, your faith. Your faith. Your faith has healed you. Now, see, I got to go back and help you understand how critical this is now. What has happened? You remember now, I said she's been bleeding for how long? For 12 years. Now, any of y'all in here know anything about your blood? You know there's a thing called platelets. Is that something that's in there? And in order for what she really needed was for her platelets to start clotting. Are you understand? So when you cut your finger, you know, your platelets start clotting and it causes the blood to stop. Are y'all walking with me here? Now watch this now. Watch this. Now, how many have heard of the 12-step program? I ain't talking about that one. Yeah, see, some of y'all are afraid to raise your hand. Yeah. I'm not going to make you go to a meeting and anything. I said, yeah. Now walk with me. With the blood clotting, and this is just a little bit of my understanding of it. Do you not know that it takes 12 steps, all right, in order for the blood to clot? Are y'all walking with me here? And if any one of those steps are missed, oh, y'all not even listening to what's happening here. If any one of those steps are missed, then the blood would have never clotted. So what am I trying to say? Then that lets us know that we weren't created. We didn't evolve out of any monkeys or out of any molecules. It took someone with some scientific understanding to understand how the human body works. And so when Jesus said, your faith is healed, the God of the universe that created her, whatever step was missing in her blood clotted. Are you just watching me here? Whatever. I don't know if it was step number 9. I don't know if it was step number 8. I don't know if it was step number 10. But whatever that chain was, God went in and into her DNA and started writing a new script in her body. And all of a sudden, that blood started clotting in her body. But it didn't happen because she touched the hem of his garment. No, it happened because she had faith. She had a crazy enough faith to say that if I could just get near him. Some of us just need to get into the presence of God. You don't need to sneak up on him. You need to come and look him in his face and say, Father, I stretch my hand to thee. That's what she was saying. No other help. No other help. I know. And so I want to encourage you that during this series of crazy faith, that you have to understand here now that Jesus cares more about people than prohibitions. See, some laws aren't written just to obey. Some laws are written to violate because there are people who need help. And you need to be more concerned about the people than the laws you write. See, the Jews were so concerned about keeping all the laws that they had forgot about the people. Somewhat like our government now, caring about the laws and forgetting about the people. Y'all, walk with me here now. Walk with me. And so this is what he's saying to us. Here's the bottom line if you don't remember anything else. Your condition, whatever it is, whatever your issue is, your condition can put you in a position to activate your faith. Oh, y'all didn't hear me. Your condition. See, we all have issues. But that sometimes can put you in a position to activate your faith. What am I trying to say? You've been trying to do things your own way. You've got your ostrich egg. I don't know what it looks like. But you've got some false understanding on how you can make your life better. Some of you are trying to fix your own relationships with family. Some of you are trying to fix your relationship with relationships that you're in. But you're doing it all outside of God's will and outside of God's word. Some of you are traveling from doctor to doctor, and I believe in doctors, but I also believe in Dr. Jesus. So before I go to the doctor, and before any of you go to the doctor, you need to go to Dr. Jesus first. And let your condition put you in a position to activate your faith. And so my challenge for you this week is to put your faith to the test and trust God in every area of your life. Just be crazy enough to do it. See, God will show up and he'll show out when you're crazy enough to trust him. And this is what this woman was. Crazy enough to put all her marbles, put all her chips, take all the risk. She took a chance at being stoned and all the other things they could have done to her. But she said, I'd heard about a man named Jesus who came down 42 long generations. There's a story that this woman's name may have been Veronica, and that she stayed with Jesus even through the cross, that she came and wiped the blood off of him as he was on his way to the cross. I don't know if it's true or not, but I can guarantee you she never forgot that day when she had issues and she took them to Jesus.